Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome onto the stage Director of Programmes for the Varkey Foundation, Dr. Desmond Birmingham.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you all had a great day yesterday and are looking forward to more of the same today. I hope you all had a great evening yesterday with the Italian cultural soiree. Please join me in giving them a round of applause for that great evening yesterday. Thank you. The short video you've just watched gives you an idea of the programs the Varkey Foundation, with our partners, is working on around the world to deliver practical and scalable programs to train teachers and school leaders to form the next generation of global citizens. And we have plans to do much more over the coming years. I joined the Varkey Foundation as Director of Global Programs in May last year, but my first encounter with this forum was in 2013. I was impressed then by the energy and innovation I saw. I'm sure you'll agree with me that the forum has gone from strength to strength since then, and so have the programs. When I asked Vikas what I should talk about in this session, he said in his inimitable style, well, Desmond, you've been around for a while. You've been head of education at DFID, Global Education Director at Save the Children. You've been at the World Bank. You've been a teacher. Tell us what you think and what's different about the Varkey Foundation. So I thought about it. And to me, there are three things that make the Varkey Foundation a very special organization. Firstly, the foundation has a single focus and a clear mission: a great teacher for every child. And as you can see from this weekend, teachers and teaching run through the bloodstream of the organization. The founder and chairman, Sunny Varkey, was a teacher himself. So I believe were his parents. And when I first visited the foundation's programs in Ghana, Uganda, and Argentina last year, what struck me was how practical they were, how focused on the classroom. They were programs that were designed, developed, and delivered by teachers and for teachers, and that makes them quite special in my experience. The second notable feature of the foundation for me is that while it may have teachers and teaching in its bloodstream, it's got the spirit of the entrepreneur in its DNA. It is a not-for-profit foundation, but with the culture of a private sector organization. Private working with public, as Andreas referred to it yesterday. And that brings a commitment to innovate, to challenge old thinking, and a commitment to deliver a high-quality service at the best possible price. The leadership of the organization are passionate about making the best use of the resources we've been given to maximize the benefit of the child in the classroom. And the last and perhaps most important feature of the Varkey Foundation is all of you. The tremendous network of expertise and knowledge which the foundation brings together every year and then throughout the year. 150 of the world's best teachers, more than 2,000 education experts and policymakers, alliances focusing on the big issues in education, all committed to the same mission: to make sure that every child enjoys their right to a great teacher. You all help make the foundation what it is. We've started many conversations this weekend about building on old and building new partnerships. I look forward to turning those conversations into actions. Thank you for sharing our passion. Thank you for sharing our commitment. Thank you, and have a great day. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for the presentation of medals to the top 10 finalists of the Global Teacher Prize 2017, please welcome onto the stage Mr. Sunny Varkey and Mr. Fred van Leeuwen, General Secretary of Education International, a global federation of teacher unions which represents over 32 million educators and support professionals across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our top 10 finalists. Salima Begum from Pakistan. David Calais from Spain. Woo! Raymond Chambers from the United Kingdom. Marie-Christine Ganbari-Jarumi from Germany. Tracy Ann Hall from Jamaica. Maggie McDonnell from the Canadian Arctic. Emerson da Silva Nogueira from Brazil. Ken Silburn from Australia. Michael Wamaya from Kenya. And Boya Yang from China. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause for our top 10 finalists. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome onto the stage Chief Executive of the Varkey Foundation, Mr. Vikas Pota.
Good morning, everyone. Come on. Good morning, everyone. That's more like it. You've had your Weetabix like I have, huh? So, what a great day yesterday was. I mean, I remember going to a lot of the sessions, popping in, and I want to thank you all for being punctual, on time, and engaging. The return on investment I explained to the teachers a few days ago was we want you to be engaged delegates, engaged friends in the conference. So thank you so much for that, and you made yesterday a huge success. Some of the highlights for me and where this conference differs is, obviously we have education track where you talk to policymakers. Obviously, you speak to teachers and you celebrate teachers. But yesterday, we had some very unique things. We had, for example, the sports stars, who came and they spoke so eloquently and articulated their commitment to education, which I thought was very, very unique. And it actually blew me away. I want to thank them as well. Of course, I'm a big fan of Brian Lara, so please round of applause for the athletes. And Desmond came up and he obviously spoke about last night's Italian cultural soiree. Obviously I knew what was going to happen, but to actually see it and see the celebration, the majesty of the event, I thought was incredible. And I want to congratulate the Italian government for putting on such a great delegation and great experience for all of us. Of course, pizza, pasta, food, cuisine, music are all important, but actually their contributions to this conference spans much beyond that, to making sure that we understand their commitment to global citizenship, to innovation, and through their participation in our alliances and in the program of the conference, I think we really do showcase Italy fantastically well. Please join me once again in thanking them. What we wanted to do, the Italians have set a precedent. And we felt as an organization that the country partnership format really worked. And through today, you will see their participation, active participation. And it may be a bit premature, but I'm delighted to announce today that we have selected and agreed that the government of Argentina will be our country partner for the year 2018. Please join me in welcoming them. Can I please ask for the Argentinian delegation to stand? Please stand, Diego. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, the Minister of Education from Argentina is unable to join us, but he has sent us a video message which we'd like to show you. Please welcome the message.
I want to start by thanking His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum for his patronage of the Global Education and Skills Forum, the Varkey Foundation for their commitment to this event and to the teacher cause all over the world, and to Mr. Sani Varkey for his friendship and also his support of education and global citizenship. We believe that global citizenship is the perfect solution for the world's problems. We believe that a global view will bring down the walls of despair, the walls of destruction, the walls of fear that are being built as a possible solution for some of these problems. We don't think walls are a solution. We think education is the solution for the world's problems. And that's why, while presiding in 2018 the G20, President Macri has decided to put and push the education agenda at the G20 level, the teacher agenda at the G20 level. And that's why I also want to partner with the Global Education and Skills Forum, continuing the work that Italy has done this year as a partner of the GESF to push the global teacher agenda. We think education has the power to bring peace to the world. We think each one of you there at the forum, every single teacher there, every single teacher in the world is a peace worker, a peace builder. That's why, even though I couldn't be there with you today, and I see you haven't kept my seat, I wanted to be with you in spirit through this message, to continue this work that we're building and trying to take all over the world with Education International. We want to have global teachers. We want teachers to be those peace workers. We want teachers to build peace for a better world. We want a better world. We can build it together. Education unites us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bear Grylls is a man who needs little introduction. Safe to say, he's a former 21 SAS soldier who went on to become one of the youngest ever climbers of Mount Everest. From there, he has gone on to host more extreme adventure TV shows across more global networks than anyone else in the world, including ITV, Channel 4, NBC, Discovery, and China's Primetime. Bear is a man accustomed to pushing his body to extreme limits, and he has shown us how to survive and thrive in almost every one of the harshest deserts, mountains, jungles, and swamps on our planet. He has also taken some of the world's most recognized superstars along for the ride, including Will Ferrell, Kate Winslet, Roger Federer, and even Barack Obama. He is also a BAFTA winner, a #1 best-selling author, and the youngest ever Chief Scout to 50 million scouts globally. Yet he claims to be just a family man. We will leave it to you to make up your own minds.
Well, it's too long living in the same old life. Yeah, I feel too cold to live, too young to die. Yeah, will you walk the line like it's there to choose? Yeah, just forget the wins, it's the best to use. Won't you follow me into the jungle? Ain't no God on the streets, no heart of the jungle.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Bear Grylls.
I'm like stood backstage thinking, wow, no pressure. I guess really for me as a kid growing up, I did always grow up with this real dream just to one day be able to climb well. And what I found when I started to climb as a young boy, aged like 5 or 6, is that I found it was one of the few things that I could do okay and that felt natural to me. But also it's what brought me very close to my dad. And I think for me, if I'm honest, at that age, it was as much about just wanting to be close to him as it was about the actual climbing, you know. And I didn't always like being cold and scared up a rock face, but I loved hanging out with my dad, sometimes literally. But my way of being close to him is that we would climb. And I remember when I was about 8 years old, my late father giving me this beautiful picture of Mount Everest. And just as a kid at that age, I remember lying in bed in the dark and looking at this picture silhouetted and just trying to imagine what it would really be like to climb on those icy faces up there. After school, I joined the military. I spent 4 years then with the British Special Forces. And during this time, I had a free-fall parachuting accident where I had a canopy split at about 15,000 feet. As it was getting dark over southern Africa, I came spiraling down very fast, smashed into the desert, and I broke my back in 3 different places. And I spent really then the next 18 months back in the UK, strapped up in braces, in and out of what they call military rehabilitation. And I think for me what was hard during this time was not just the physical side, but it was the not knowing. Not knowing if I was going to be able to walk properly again, let alone do this one thing that I'd learned to do well now in my life, which was to climb. And suddenly this dream of Everest that I'd held on to for so long just seemed out of what I could believe in. And I remember very physically taking these pictures of Everest off those walls and just dismissing it now as something childish and something that I'd now lost. What I found when I started to recover my strength, and I think just as importantly to recover slowly my confidence, is that I found I had this urge to climb again. And for me, Everest then became the whole focus, something to focus on for my recovery. And I know how close I'd been to being paralyzed, but I kind of felt that life has given me a second chance, and we don't always get that in our lives. You know, and the doctors had told me I'd been under 1 millimeter from severing into my spinal cord, but I would walk again. I could hobble, I'd learn to walk, I'd learn to move properly, and I'd learn to climb again. And I was just determined to find a way, however long that road was going to be, of making this dream of Everest somehow a reality. The year we left for Everest, it was 12 months after being discharged from the hospital. We'd put a small team of 4 soldier climbers together. And at this stage, Everest was still claiming, should we get a little bit less feedback? Is that a bit tingy? Everest was still claiming 1 in 6 people's lives of those that reached the top, which if you think about that's a shockingly high statistic, considering the advances we see in technology, you know, and puts people out into space, okay? But still the mountain over the last 50 years has claimed this constant 1 in 6. And I think for me, you know, growing up, I'd read every book on Everest so many times. I'd read this statistic of 1 in 6 so many times. But I don't think I'd really understood it. And I think having come back from the mountain now where we did have 4 climbers lose their lives up there, I've just come back with a different view on things. And I think for me today, as a husband and as a dad, if somebody asked me to take that level of objective risk, 1 in 6, I'm not sure I'm brave enough any longer. But I think at the time, I was a bit more naive of some of the realities of what can happen and what can go wrong very quickly when you start getting into these sort of altitudes. We spent in total some 3.5 months on the mountain. And the reason you're there so long is because of having to do this process of ascending the mountain. You build up that route as high as you can, and then you have to go all the way back down, rest, get more supplies, and then go up again, but this time a little higher. And they actually say you climb Everest about 5 or 6 times over just in this process of going up and down. And yeah, it's demoralizing, maybe abseiling away, rappelling away in a couple of hours, what's taken you maybe 15 hours to climb the day and the night before. But it is a key part of it, this acclimatizing to the height. And during this time, we lived in these small 2-man tents. We'd climb up to 13, 14 hours at a time. The temperatures would often drop down to like minus 45, minus 55 degrees. And the effort is always to reach the next level on the mountain before the sun at the heat of the day hits that ice and weakens a lot of your anchor points up there. Here we go, if we bring us, here we go. And you can just see the way the ice begins to shimmer when that sun hits it. And during these months, we did have these 4 climbers lose their lives. 2 of them, 2 died of the cold, 2 fell. A couple of Russians, a New Zealander and a British guy. All of them in accidents were outside of human control. And I think what makes things so hard to deal with up there is it leaves you feeling not just vulnerable, but just powerless. Powerless to cope when things begin to go wrong. And what happens when things go wrong up there, it's so hard to reverse that process. But eventually at 6 a.m. on the 26th of May, 2 of us from our team of 4 arrived on the south summit of Everest. We could see this famous final ridge that I'd seen so many times in photographs and books, leading to what they call the Hillary Step, and then eventually on to the true summit. And we'd been climbing now for over 15 hours in a height above the South Col, the highest camp in the world at 26,000 feet. What they say is that above 26,000 feet now, you enter what's known as the death zone. The death zone is a very uninspiring term. You know, the Brits, we would never have called it the death zone. You know, we would have called it the, you know, oops, not particularly pleasant zone, you know. Despair sometimes. But the reason it's called the death zone is the simple fact the human body can't survive up here. You can't digest food, and your body begins to eat into its own muscle and bone in this struggle for this precious energy. And to give you an idea, you know, we hadn't had a pee up here at this stage for over 2 days properly. You know, your body's just not working. And everything is just reduced to this base level of what feeds you, what gives you strength. But the only real strength you get come from these 2 oxygen scuba-style tanks on your back that come around to this mask in front of your face. And that really is your lifeblood up there. And I just remember lying on the south summit, wind screaming over the top of us at like 50, 60 miles an hour, Neil and myself crouched from those winds, desperately hyperventilating, needing more oxygen, but only having what you carry on your back. And then just, I remember holding his hands and the 2 of us just starting to stand up and start to move a step at a time along this famous final ridge and moving like 3 or 4 paces a minute. You know, it really is, it's that slow up there. Just to cross this stage, full speed would take you at least 10 minutes. You know, it's a shuffle and a step by step, and it kind of feels like you're climbing this mountain of waist-deep treacle whilst giving somebody a piggyback who then's getting a pair of football socks and is trying to get it down your throat. You know, you're sucking at this stuff, but nothing's filling your lungs. And I remember about a quarter of the way along this ridge coming across the body of Rob Hall, who died up here before. And Rob had done this fatal thing of running out of oxygen, collapsing, and just from where he sat, he didn't have that strength to stand up again. Rob had a radio. He managed to make contact with climbers lower down the mountain, but that far away, they were powerless to do anything to help him. They managed to patch him through on a satellite phone to his wife, Jan, back in New Zealand. And Jan was pregnant with their first child at the time. And people on the mountain just listened to this pleading and pleading of Jan to Rob to stand up, and move. But in those sort of temperatures during that storm, you know, it was like minus 75 degrees up there. He couldn't do that. And slowly Jan realized this, and it then just became this love story of her saying goodbye. Together they named their unborn child, and Rob managed to hold on. And he held on for over 12 hours during that storm in those crazy low temperatures. But by the next day, he'd frozen, and I just remember sitting next to Rob, still perfectly, you know, hair blowing, and just as if I could nudge him, and he'd stand and he'd climb with me. And I desperately needed something that would give me strength up here, and he was such a hero of mine. But, you know, that wasn't going to happen, and I just remember this panic filling me, and just, you know, that there are a lot of bodies up there. There are over 100 still on the mountain that you can't get off the mountain, but this was different. You know, we were so close, but now so far away that I just didn't know where to put it in my brain, and I remember wanting to move away now from Rob and crawling along the last bit of this ridge here. And it's an extraordinary ridge where just where it's dark, it drops straight down for 9,000 feet, straight down to the plains of Tibet below. It's the highest, most exposed ridge in the world. A lot of it's corniced over, so you're actually climbing on top of just frozen water with no rock underneath you for a long way. And I remember at one point just resting in my ice axe, and it just suddenly went, and just pulling it out and seeing this like football-size hole of air for 9,000 feet straight down, and thinking, wow, okay, this is a really bad place to be climbing. But eventually, at the end of this ridge, coming to what they call the Hillary Step, and this is really the final major obstacle on the mountain, and it's one of these obstacles that you know if you get over this, you do it on your belly if you have to. Nothing will stop you now. And it's like a 35, 40 foot, maybe a little bit higher than the height of this, vertical ice wall, and it leads then on to the final gentle summit slope. And I remember just having this fear that I'd get so close, but this would be the one thing that would stop me. And something I climbed so many times at sea level or in the other mountains, but at this altitude, just nothing working and having no strength. My strength that was gone. And starting up this thing and taking forever, but eventually after about 45 minutes, feeling that lip above, throwing 2 axes over, wriggling, lying in this waist-deep powder snow on the lip of that wall, clearing it from in front of my mask, and then just looking up. And not being able to believe that just for the first time, 200 meters of gentle cresting slope was the roof of the world. And just beginning to move a step at a time, but however many of these shuffles you take, this place never gets any closer. And then just feeling this adrenaline begin to pump. And feeling it very physically, filling veins and muscles, and it gives you this strange sense of strength. But then very quickly the weakness that replaces it because you can't sustain the intensity. And I just remember crying and crying inside my mask as I moved, just because that little part of me that ever since that hospital, that wasn't always such a little part of me either, had never really, if I'm honest, it never really believed that I could do this. That voice that we all have was being silenced. And eventually at 7:22 that morning, Neil and myself arrived on the summit of Everest. And I just remember collapsing to my knees and with our masks off, just hugging. This was also one of the worst hair days I've had for some time. Actually, I remember getting home at the end and I showed it to my mum, photograph. And she looked at it, and she's getting on now a bit, my mum, but her only comment was this: "Oh, it would have been so nice if you'd combed your hair." Can't change our mums, eh? But the views are truly extraordinary. It's always hard to stand and describe the place, but you see the curvature of the earth at the edges, and you're very aware you're somewhere special in the best sense of that word. My father was alive to see me reach the summit of Everest, but he died soon after. But not before I'd got the chance to tell him that he'd climbed that mountain with me every faltering step of the way together. And one of the only things I took from the summit was a little scoop of snow and a little bottle that became obviously snow water, melt water. And over the years, Shara and my wife, we've christened our 3 boys with that water. My dad used to have little sips of it for strength. And I sometimes have little sips of it for strength. But the thing is, it was never about the water. It was about believing that dreams are worth fighting for and they're worth taking some risks for. And it's understanding that the rewards in life don't always go to the biggest, or the bravest, or the cleverest, or even the best. The rewards in life go to the dogged, to the determined, to the tenacious. Those who get back on their feet when they're kicked, and they get up again and again. The rewards go to those who understand what it means to never give up. And really, this is what this is all about. It's not about a mountain. It's about you guys. And you're extraordinary people in a truly extraordinary profession. But if you can keep instilling young people with vision, with courage, with hope, with humility, with kindness, with that tenacious spirit, that zeal for life, if you can keep doing that again and again, every morning when you get up and you don't feel like it, that is how together we change the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Sonny.
It's an honor to see you. Thank you.
Well, well done, everybody. Thank you.
I'm telling my son, you know.
Where is he?
Both of them.
Bear, thank you so much for your words and the message. You obviously motivated my boss to come up and look at his sons and say, see, I told you. A bit unfair, sir. They're great guys. When my mother told me a story as well, and they said that your name influences what kind of personality you become. My name, Vikas, actually means development in Sanskrit. Bear? Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Oh, I was christened Edward, and my sister said that's a terrible name as a baby, and she called me Bear, and as a kid, I used to hate it. I used to think, age 6, why can't I have a normal name? I'm like different, it's weird, but it's endured, and everything from sergeant majors in the army to teachers to whatever. Hey, it could be worse, you know.
Fantastic. And the opening reel actually told about you and your celebrities who've been to various exploits with you. I specifically remember the Barack Obama one, because I watched that a few times, and I thought that was pretty incredible. So in terms of you've taken Kate Winslet, Roger Federer, Barack Obama, and a host of other people, what's that responsibility like?
Well, it is different. For years, I did the show just on my own. We'd go to these jungles, deserts, hanging off something, get a rope, tie the knot. I don't even look. I know it's good, and we go. Suddenly you have like the president on the end of a rope or whatever, whoever it is. You're like, let's just check that knot. But I love it. It's a great privilege in my life, and I'm super respectful of these people. They're putting their lives in my hands. They're stepping out of their comfort zone. But I also admire and recognize that spirit that they want to step out of their comfort zones. And like all of us, that's where we keep our edge. And it's no surprise that these guys are top of their profession. But it's always fun. And I think when you see people develop a quiet pride and a confidence that the wild gives you, and their eyes light up, and by the end they're standing tall, that's why I do my job. And whether you're a famous actor or a young kid, it's the same thing. It's in all of us, and I love that.
So we also know about your association with the Boy Scout movement. As a young Boy Scout, I know hard to believe for many of us here, as a young Boy Scout, we were always told of great role models. What does it mean to you to be the chief scout of the Boy Scout movement, the youngest one at that?
Well, I can sum that job up in 3 words, which is encourage, encourage, encourage. It's an incredible worldwide force for good that gives young people access who would never normally get access to adventures, to incredible life skills, community, friendship, life values. And, you know, everyone goes, well, you were a very good scout. And I was a scout, but I wasn't a very good scout. I had one badge. I was so shy, I could hardly speak, you know, and you would have lost me in a crowd, you know. So my message to them is just to go for it. And wherever we film around the world, we try and meet scouts. I think I'm meeting some later today here, united by simple values. And it's amazing hearing some of the stories coming out of the refugee camps at the moment of the one organization that is trusted and is recognized is the Scouts. And the Syrian Scouts were so strong and are so strong, but they're now working in these refugee camps. And it's inspiring, and it's based on kindness and friendships. And I'm very proud, yeah.
I know from my own experience, the spirit of adventure was something that was pretty important. And, you know, in today's world, have we become too obsessed with health and safety and those kind of matters, which are obviously important? Are we becoming too obsessed by that feature of our lives now? Do kids actually go out and play, climb trees, climb mountains, have adventure?
Well,
what is your take on this?
I think a little. In fact, I think a lot, you know. I mean, when I took over as Chief Scout, I said, listen, you know, I'm bad at meetings, I'm pretty scruffy, and my health and safety is sometimes a bit dubious, you know. And they looked at me like, okay. But I think, hey, listen, first of all, we all want to keep young people safe. Priority number one. But you can do it in such an exciting way. And I take young people out when we go climbing, and I stand in front of them at the start of the day, and I go, okay, what we're going to do today is going to be incredibly dangerous. And you see all the guys at the back going, you know, and all the kids are like, yeah, you know. But I then say, but we're going to look after each other, we're going to keep each other safe, we're going to learn how to do it like a professional, and they love it, you know. And I think if you strip risk out of young people's lives, you kill their spirit, you know. Risk is all around us, all of us, every day. You empower kids when you teach them how to manage that risk, you know. And I see it sometimes with friends, you know. I had a friend the other day, he didn't want to go skiing, his daughter to go skiing in case she broke her wrist before her exams. And it's like, come on, you know, it's good. Go to the mountains, go and have fun, you know. So I walk the line, I try and get safer and safer and safer, but you've got to stay on the line. Yeah, it's good.
You know, we're obsessed with gadgets nowadays, and if you look at any kind of environment where you have kids, you'll see them on their mobiles. They don't talk to each other as much, you know, and we have this problem where the engagement levels, as physical engagement levels, are pretty actually low. What would be your advice on how we build a sense of teamwork and friendship in young children in this age of devices?
Well, it comes down to parents and teachers. You know, it comes from us. It's like always the same. It's example, example, example. You know, if we're lazy and we just let them sit, you know, there's a definite place, of course, for screens. I have 3 young boys, you know. They go on their iPad sometimes. But it's about keeping it limited and actually showing them something more fun. And as soon as you take them outside, you don't have to take them to Everest. I could take kids out walk along the beach here. And it's the kids that would make it fun, not me, because they have great imaginations. But if they lose using the imagination, you lose it. So it's like nature, it's like God's given us this great outdoor playground that is better than any device. I know it to be true, because I take kids who live on devices, I take them away, and their eyes are like, wow, you know? So it's not about money. You know, you do it in a garden. So, but it comes from us. And it's difficult sometimes because we're all busy, you know, but it's worth it, especially if that is our mission. My mission is young people. Your mission is young people. We have to summon up that kind of energy to lead and to inspire and take them out and let their imaginations go. My kids' imaginations are way better than me. You know, 2 minutes in, they've got cardboard boxes stuck into trees. They're throwing whatever at them. You know, it's just cool. But you've got to give them that space.
When you look back at your education, and given what you do today in specific, do you think that there were any parts missing from the education you received, whether it's through the curriculum or through the experience? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the thing is, I wasn't very good at school, you know, and I struggled a lot with confidence and everything. But I look back now and, you know, I see it with my own kids. You know, I wish a school taught them stuff that really helps them, you know, and I was never very good at maths, and I'm still not very good at maths. But you know what? I've built a life without, it's these stuff I wish people had taught me. I don't know whether you agree with this or not, but I wish they'd taught me how to keep fit, how to eat healthy food, how to lead a team, how to communicate with people. The stuff I wouldn't have minded, even a bit of like entrepreneurial stuff or citizenship or, all of this sort of stuff. Bit of tax, a bit of legal, bit of the stuff that kind of I've learned lessons by mistakes over the years. Those are the things, and a bit of unarmed combat thrown in as well. Maybe I should start a school. But I think school celebrates the good-looking guy, or the sporty guy, or the academic guy. Life doesn't care. It does not care. And when I was at school, the people who were brilliant at school were often disasters in life because they miss the one element that really matters in life, which is called the fight. And the great people I know at life often struggled at school, but it was a struggle that developed the strength. So my message always for kids that are shy and are not very confident in school is, you got it. You're the ones. Go for it, And they get looked over.
I was going to throw in, how do you learn to eat maggots, mate?
Yeah, look.
To be honest,
kids love it. Kids love it. It's the grown-ups that are like, because we learn our coping mechanisms of like, that's not very cool, But the kids are like, I'll try a maggot.
Yeah, my wife says she can't watch your program because of all that stuff. But, in terms of, in final, what would be the one message you would want to give us and young people around the world? What would be your message to the world?
Wow, I think for young people to go for things, it is okay to go for it, want it with all your heart. Go for things. Choose that path less trodden. Embrace failure. We're also scared of failing because it makes us look vulnerable. You gotta fail alone. Don't listen to the dream stealers, the people who say you can't do it, And be kind. Nobody tells you in school, there's no lesson on being kind. It's the most important lesson in life, The greatest wealth we have is our relationships. It is not in dollars. The greatest wealth we have is our relationship. And ultimately, to say to kids, never give up. Never give up. This is where life is found.
It would be remiss of me, as a last question, given that we have this event tonight called the Global Teacher Prize Ceremony, to not ask you who your favorite teacher was. Now, I say this before, I want to make everyone aware that the former headmaster of your school is here.
Is he? Where is he?
Tony, if you're here, put your hand up. He's here somewhere, we can't see him. But your former headmaster is here, tell us.
Oh, phew, just going to breathe a sigh.
We'll have someone to ask. Who was your favorite teacher?
Oh, well, listen, he's an amazing man, Tony Little, and he would probably agree. He would probably agree with everything I've said, that I wasn't very good at school, but I was scruffy, I was covered in mud, but I was tenacious. Do you know what? I had some wonderful teachers. We all have one or two that have really inspired us. But really, if I'm honest, if I look at my life, the greatest teacher I had was actually my dad. That example.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bear Grylls. I really appreciate it. Good luck for tonight. So, as per previous years, what we want to do in this closing plenary is actually make a few announcements and tell you about some of the updates from previous things that we have done, and to welcome your partnership and your friendship in these. If you remember last year, we launched our Challenge Fund, which were aimed at the fund is aimed at supporting very early stage initiatives, NGOs, people with the vision of helping to build the capacity of the teaching profession. Last year we gave 4 grants. One was to Teach for Ghana, who I'm delighted to say have already trained 33 fellows, and the first cohort has gone through, and they had an astounding 300 applications in Uganda. The second was Jasur, who organized a regional conference called Generation Hope in January of this year to provide an opportunity for teachers and school principals to engage around the topic of improving delivery of education to Syrian refugee children in the Middle East. The third was an organization, a Chinese organization called BEAM, which has engaged almost 1,000 teachers per month, targeting the learning outcomes of the 175 million rural Chinese children through the WeChat-based app. And the last one was Prosvit from Slovakia, who have trained over 150 teachers, and after that, subsequently have been engaged by the Ministry of Finance to lead teacher training in 24 rural schools as part of the national decentralization process. Please join me in congratulating them from last year, and it's obvious that our funds have actually been used to scale their initiatives, which is what it was intended for. I am delighted to ask and announce today 4 new grantees for the Challenge Fund, and I'd like to invite our trustees and the recipients to come up on stage as their names are called, and please show them your love and offer a round of applause. The first being Teach for Uganda, and I'd like to invite James Kasaga Arenitwe to the stage. This organization, as you know, recruits promising university graduates from varied disciplines who are poised to be our future leaders, to teach in underserved communities and schools in a 2-year fellowship. Please welcome Teach for Uganda to the stage with Amanda Jenkins, our trustee. Wonderful. The second recipient of our grant funding is an organization called Invincible Me from London, the UK. Invincible Me's principal aims are to build capacity by providing every teacher in the UK with a strong grounding and understanding in identifying complex trauma so they can help the most vulnerable children heal and grow up feeling safe, loved, and able to become productive members of society. Please welcome Amy Shocker from Invincible Me to the stage with Karen Giles. Once again. The third recipient of our Challenge Fund is called the Arab Campaign for Education for All, led by the Teacher Creativity Center in Palestine. The ACEA is leading the introduction of a pilot of a national teachers prize in 15 Arab and Eastern European countries, building on the national pride and global interest generated by the winner of our 2016 Global Teacher Prize winner, Hanan Al Hroub. We are proud to support the Teacher Creativity Center in Palestine as the leaders of this initiative. Please welcome Rafat Sabah and David Clifford, our trustee, to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan bin Mubarak Al Nahyan, Cabinet Member and Minister of Culture and Knowledge Development.
Please join me in welcoming His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan to the hall. And the final recipient of our challenge grant is an organization called Civica from Slovakia. Please welcome Katerina Pazmani to the stage with our trustee, Jamie Lowther Pinkerton. The Kamensky Institute aims to create an inspirational space for pedagogical readers of Slovakia. With 20 participants, Civica is scaling up the initiative and ensuring its training materials of the highest, most relevant quality in order to transform the education system. Please invite them to the stage. Thank you so much. We are also delighted at this juncture in the establishment and the evolution of our organization to put forward today a group called the Atlantis Group. Atlantis for obvious reasons. But when we go around the world, we meet with ministers of education and senior policymakers. And when they're in office, they tell us a lot of good stuff in terms of their thinking behind how they've come to the education policies of their country. And when you really ask them, when they leave, what would you have done better? And they become more expressive and they become more able to share their thoughts and actually have an input. And you think, well, why couldn't you have done that when you were in office? And so with that sentiment, we thought what we would do is convene a group of education ministers who have served their countries into this Atlantis group. And I'm proud that today we have over 20 education ministers who have joined, and this is a group that will grow over time. Please join me in thanking the members of the Atlantis Group, and can I ask you all to stand, as in the Atlantis Group members to stand so you can identify them. Congratulate them, please. Thank you so much. We will be convening our first meeting of the Atlantis Group later on today. And in July of this year, we will be convening them to a summit in London, and with a specific focus around leadership in education, because it is a subject that they know very well, and we know that they will be able to contribute immensely to that cause. The third announcement I have is to do with the formation of new alliances. Alliances we established last year are expert groups of people, of experts from around the world who come together to talk about various things. I'm pleased to say that the 3 alliances that we set up last year have produced reports and looked at projects that they have contributed to significantly. Those were last year the Teachers Alliance, the Innovation Alliance, and the Girls Education Alliance. Please join me in congratulating them and the members of these alliances and what they have achieved. The reports are on the app and on our website for you to review and have been discussed through various ed talks and sessions during this conference. Please congratulate them. Given the success of these 3 alliances, we felt that we would take the opportunity to expand these expert groups to a few more subjects. And before I mention what the groups are, I also want to recognize and thank the Real Center of Cambridge University, who are our partners and managing the secretariat. Dr. Pauline Rose, who is here with us today, has been facilitating and organizing these sessions and will be taking charge of these alliances going forward. Please join me in thanking her specifically and the Real Center. Please stand. The new alliances, and you will find the remit of each alliance on our website for you to have a look at. And if you want to engage with them, the contact details, hopefully of the 2 co-chairs of each alliance and the members, are the following. We have alliances on alternative models to universities. And given the independence of university academics, they've decided yesterday to change the name of the alliance, and I can't remember what it is, but it is about universities. The second is about public-private partnerships in education. The third about post-conflict and peace. The fourth about global citizenship. The fifth about climate change education. The sixth about assessment and impact. Please join me in thanking all the members of all our alliances who I'd like to ask to stand and recognize. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You are some of the most prolific thinkers and actors in this space, and we look forward to your partnership and your friendship over the year, and we look forward to seeing you all around the world at various conferences and events, any opportunity we get to convene. Ladies and gentlemen, when we started our foundation, we held a glittering event with President Bill Clinton, who we unveiled as our chairman at that time. My recent Facebook feed actually brings back memories, you know, as it does. And I remember quite vividly, actually, we were pushed into our foundation because of a commitment to philanthropy and commitment to giving. This year, which you may not know, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid has declared this year as the year of giving in the UAE. Now, it is by no coincidence that this is the year of giving, but the initial push for us came from the encouragement and advice from His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan, who has joined us here today. Sheikh Nahyan is a visionary leader in the UAE and around the world, and a great friend to our foundation. We value your kind words of support and your encouragement throughout the years, and I ask you, in your capacity as Minister of Culture and Knowledge Development, to address this audience. Please welcome His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I know that all of you visitors from abroad have already been welcomed abundantly to Dubai and to the United Arab Emirates. This forum provides a special reason to welcome you again. It is a forum which is devoted to answering the question, how do we make a real global citizen? Your very presence reinforces one of the obvious answers to that question, especially the vision of it that is more relevant to my own experience. That is, how do we become a real global citizens? That begins to happen when we see and hear other people who are not part of our own local culture. Scores of different cultures, nationalities, ethnicities, religions, and beliefs are assembled here this morning. The experience of simply seeing you, hearing you, and possibly even talking with you changes the perspective of, for example, us UAE citizens. We gain knowledge. We have been gaining knowledge of others over 45 years. When our nation's founder, the late Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, united the Emirates and established our nation in 1971, most of us knew relatively little about the world beyond our desert and our coastline. Strangers traveled the trade routes, but few foreigners actually lived and worked in our land. We had no national education system. We simply lived among ourselves. We did have, however, a courageous and enlightened leader who knew that we must seek and welcome help from abroad if we were to build the country that he envisioned. He knew that the first priority of the newly formed UAE must be good education. With his wife, Her Highness, the mother of our nation, Sheikh Fatima bint Mubarak, he knew that women must play a role equal to men if we were to develop fully. Thank you. Thank you. If we to develop fully and fairly, he knew that our linguistic skills must extend beyond our beloved Arabic language and embrace the universal power of other languages. He knew that we had to immerse ourselves in the wonders of science and technology and capitalize on the latest advances. Sheikh Zayed wanted our country to become a sound force in the global economy. His actions led us to that status. He once said, and I quote, "I had many dreams. I dreamt of our land keeping pace with the growth of the modern world." As the UAE fulfills its founder's dream, it has become a global crossroads with an amazingly diverse population of almost 10 million people, representing some 200 different countries. The great variety of visitors today demonstrates the glorious multicultural reality that is the UAE. Just as we gain knowledge from those visitors, so we continuously gain knowledge from our international friends and acquaintances who live and work here. An outstanding example of that education is the knowledge that we have gained from KS and Mariama Varkey and their son, my dear brother and friend, Sonny Varkey, to whom we are all indebted for the GEMS schools, the Varkey Foundation, this Global Education and Skills Forum, and the Global Teacher Prize. Thank you, my dear brother and son, Sonny. Thank you. You are a truly global citizen. Thank you. Such knowledge, as communicated by the Varkeys, has already enriched our native Emirati culture. As our community opened itself to the acquisition of knowledge about others, our awarenesses of and concern for the rest of the world becomes more pronounced. While happily remaining UAE citizens, we become global citizens as well. And I sense that most non-UAE citizens who live and work here, while committed to their own particular culture, have likewise come to know the global community and declared their allegiance to it. The emergence of a global culture in the UAE has been a natural consequence of our development. Every step we have taken over the last 45 years has moved us into a global society. Our momentum has quickened under the leadership of His Highness the President, Sheikh Ibn Zayed Al Nahyan, with, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. With the formidable support of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Vice President, Prime Minister, ruler of Dubai, and His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, and the Deputy Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. They are leaders who recognize the potential of our, to use the words of His Highness Sheikh Ali bin Zayed, greatly diversified demographically, and the obligation to respect human rights and provide opportunities for, and I quote again, dignified living to all who live on our lands. That attitude strengthens a cosmopolitan society and encourages global citizenship. That attitude does not imply a prospective curriculum for making global citizens. In our case, unique circumstances and wise leadership are turning us into a global citizen. But the question posed by this forum suggests that you are seeking ways to achieve this under different circumstances. The question seemed to be asking for an identification of actions that might make this creature, whom we are calling a global citizen, in other contexts. I shall be so bold as to suggest that the experience of the UAE may furnish some possible actions. Here they are. One, welcome the rest of the world to educate young people so that they can intelligently and confidently engage the rest of the world with curiosity and respect. Three, build a peaceful society that seeks knowledge freely without fear. Fourth, encourage serious and searching dialogue among all elements of your population. Fifth, supplement study of native language with the study of other world languages. Sixth, enlist and reward the talents of the entire community, both women and men. Seven, join forces with intellectual enterprises worldwide, especially those concerned with science and technology. Eight, promote universal moral values. These actions may go a long way toward the making of a global citizen. Will they be real? That is a question I will not even try to answer. But you, as educators and education policy makers, are amongst the most important stakeholders engaged in the process of making real global citizens. You have a special and shared responsibility, but equally important, you have an opportunity. The Global Education and Skills Forum has the potential to be agenda setting and to stand for something very tangible and meaningful. Let me challenge you with a thought experiment. What if this forum were to draft a charter of real global citizenship? A charter that with the passage of time could take hold in the minds of leaders around the world. A charter that governments will be pleased and proud to sign and implement. A charter that requires actions and measures their impact. A charter that would spawn its own related real global citizenship index where countries may be compared in terms of their contributions towards creating a real global citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, Those of us who already enjoy the fruits and benefits of globalization have a duty to make our voices heard at this time, more than ever. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that policies, programs, and practices will help spread the goals and objectives of true global citizenship. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you, and best wishes for a successful conclusion to this splendid conference. May God be with you, and thank you very much.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome onto the stage the winner of the Global Teacher Prize 2016, Hanan Al Hroub.
Right, with it, right, yeah, right. You are very right, yeah.
Oh, good morning. Assalamu alaikum. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحضور الكريم، السيدات والسادة، نلتقي اليوم بعد مرور عام على الفوز. لحظة تاريخية في حياتي، لحظة الشعور بانتصار القيم والمبادئ الإنسانية التي أؤمن بها، لحظة الثقة بقوة الإرادة والتصميم على تحقيق الهدف. ما زلت أتمنى لو تتكرر بعض لحظات الفرح الذي لطالما غابت عني، وأعيشها بوعي وأتأمل في ذاتي ومع ذاتي لكي أعيد تلك المشاعر مرة أخرى. أول الفرح عندما وصلتني رسالة: حنان، مبروك، أنت من قائمة أفضل 50 معلم في العالم. وثاني الفرح والانتصار عندما استمعت إلى البروفيسور ستيفن هوكينج يعلن اسمي من ضمن قائمة أفضل 10 معلمين في العالم، وتم تتويج انتصاراتي بإعلان قداسة البابا فرانسيس لاسمي كفائز بجائزة المعلم العالمي للعام 2016. Thank you. ولا بد لي أن أشكر سمو الشيخ محمد بن راشد المكتوم حاكم دبي لرعايته هذه الجائزة العظيمة، والتي تعني الكثير لزملاء المعلمين، ليس لقيمتها المادية وإنما لأنها لفتت أنظار العالم أجمع للمعلمين وأهميتهم ودورهم في بناء مجتمعاتهم وإحداث التغيير المنشود في هذا العالم. كل الاحترام والتقدير للسيد ساني فاركي لفكرته العظيمة والتي لولاها لما كنت أقف أمامكم اليوم. ما زلت أتذكر الفرحة التي عمت شعبنا في كافة أماكن تواجده في الوطن وفي الشتات، وأتمنى أن تتكرر الفرحة بتحقيق أحلامنا. فكل التحية للفلسطينيين شعباً وقيادة، وأنا على ثقة بأننا بعلمنا وتفوقنا منتصرون. لم يكن الفوز إلا بداية الطريق للنضال من أجل فكر اللاعنف والسلام. فالشكر الكبير لمؤسسة فاركي والتي منحتني منصة رائعة لنشر أفكاري ورسالتي اللاعنف والسلام. السيدات والسادة، تلقيت دعوات من جميع أنحاء العالم، وزارات، جامعات، مدارس، مؤسسات. تصدرت عناوين الأخبار وحصلت على جوائز وتكريمات من بلدي ومن مختلف دول العالم. التقيت برؤساء دول، وزراء تربية، وحتى وزراء دفاع وخارجية. بدأت رحلاتي من ألمانيا، فزرت مدارس اللاجئين والتقيت بمعلمين رائعين، وتحدثت عن طرق تعليم الأطفال الذين تعرضوا للصدمات ومروا بأزمات في حياتهم. والتقيت بالرئيس تشيلي السيدة ميشيل باتشيليت ورئيس السابق السيد سيباستيان بانيرا. كنت محظوظة جداً للقاء قداسة البابا فرانسيس في الفاتيكان، يوم لن أنساه في حياتي ويعني الكثير لي ولشعبي الفلسطيني. Thank you. كان لي الفخر والاعتزاز كمعلم الوقوف على منصة الأمم المتحدة لأخاطب العالم وأتحدث عن آلام شعبي الفلسطيني ومعاناته على مدار عشرات السنين، ولقاء مع الأمين العام السابق للأمم المتحدة السيد بان كيمون، وكنت أحد رسل السلام في يوم السلام العالمي. السيدات والسادة، في أواخر عام 2016 وهو العام التاريخي بالنسبة لي، كنت سعيدة جداً للقاء أصدقائي في مؤسسة فاركي في لندن. من الرائع لقاء الفريق الذي ساندني طوال هذا العام، عاشوا معي جميع اللحظات، وكانوا دائماً العائلة التي احتضنتني، وحتى أنني كنت أشعر أنني ابنة مؤسسة فاركي المدللة. من أجمل الذكريات في لندن تكريمي في بورصة لندن، وافتتحت يوم التداول. شعرت في تلك اللحظات بأنني فزت مرة أخرى. وأيضاً التقيت بأطفال لاجئين من دول مختلفة كانوا قد وصلوا مؤخراً من مخيم كاليه. لقد استمعت إلى قصص مؤلمة جداً، استمعت إلى أحلامهم وآمالهم التي دمرتها الحروب، ومطلبهم الوحيد أن يسمح لهم بإكمال تعليمهم واحترام إنسانيتهم. أعتقد أن أصعب قرار يمكن أن تتخذه في حياتك ترك ذكرياتك وأشيائك الحبيبة وتغادر، وما بعد يطلق عليك لقب لاجئ. لا يحتاجون فقط تعلم القراءة والكتابة، وإنما يحتاجون مساعدتهم في الخروج من الأزمات والصدمات التي تعرضوا لها، وتجنب تكرار العنف الذي شهدوه. عاش الكثير منهم وفاة أحد أفراد العائلة، ومنهم من فقد كل العائلة، وعانى البعض من أعراض اضطراب ما بعد الصدمة. سيدات والسادة، كان لي شرف مشاركة زملاء المعلمين الفنلنديين أدائهم قسم المعلم لأول مرة في فنلندا. تحدثت في جامعات مثل هارفارد، كامبريدج، هلسنكي، وجامعات وطنية عن منهجية نلعب ونتعلم، وعن تجربتي في تدريس الطلاب الذين يتعرضون لصدمات، والتدريس في الظروف الصعبة والطوارئ، قلة الإمكانيات، كيف يكون التعلم المنقذ من الانجراف وراء العنف والتطرف. وكانت لي مشاركة في قمة الحكومات العالمي في دبي عن قوة اللعب في غرس منظومة قيم وأخلاق في سلوكيات الطلاب. وكما أقول دائماً، نحن المعلمون نعلم طلابنا كيف يعيشون الحياة، وليس فقط نعلمهم القراءة والكتابة. نحن من نحدد نوعية الأجيال القادمة وكيف يكونوا مواطنين صالحين في هذا العالم. ولكن هذا لا يلغي دور كل فرد في المجتمع. وهنا تحضرنا دعوات قداسة البابا فرانسيس المتكررة للمحبة والسلام والعدل والمساواة. لهذا أوجه دعوتي لصناع القرار في العالم. حان وقت التغيير وتأسيس مجتمعات خالية من العنف. الدعوات للتفرقة سواء على أساس الجنس أو اللون أو الدين تؤسس لمجتمعات تسودها الكراهية والحقد. أقول لقادة العالم الذي يتآكل من جراء الحروب، كمعلمة أذهب إلى صفي كل يوم لأجد تساؤلات كثيرة تنتظرني من طلابي عن الخطابات التي تلقونها، فانتبهوا لما تقولونه، فإن ما تقولونه يختزن في العقل الباطن لهؤلاء الأطفال، وتبقى كلماتكم منغرسة في أذهانهم. السيدات والسادة، والآن نلتقي بعد اكتمال الدائرة هنا مرة أخرى في دبي، أنا ومؤسسة فاركي، وكل ما حققناه من إنجازات اكتملت وتوجت بإلهام جديد وشراكة قوية ما بين فاركي وإنتربيس لعمل شبكة ومنظمة لمساعدة المجتمعات التي مزقتها الحروب من أجل بناء سلام عادل ودائم. إنها شبكة تجمع المعلمين من جميع أنحاء العالم إلى الدعوة لدور التعليم في بناء السلام. لذا أنا مسرورة وفخورة اليوم لإطلاق تجمع معلمون من أجل السلام، وسوف ننفذ حملات تدعو إلى توفير التعليم في حالات الطوارئ وخلال الصراعات وما بعدها، ويكون بمثابة مركزاً لتبادل أفضل الممارسات. دعوتنا للمعلمين والأطفال أن يكونوا قادرين على التعليم والتعلم في مواجهة الصراع، وأن يخلو التعليم من الدعوة للتعصب والتطرف والتخويف والترهيب، وتكون لديهم القدرة على تحويل هذه الصراعات إلى دافع وحافز لتغيير الواقع نحو الأفضل. في جميع أنحاء العالم يوجد مدارس تستخدم كأماكن للهجمات والعنف والإهمال والتطرف. ينبغي أن تكون مدارسنا أماكن للسلام والأمان، يتم تربية الطلاب والذين هم مواطنون في هذا العالم على فهم المشاكل العالمية، ليتكون لديهم مهارات وقدرة على حل النزاعات والخلافات بطريقة بناءة وإيجابية، والعيش وفق المعايير الدولية لحقوق الإنسان والمساواة، ومع مراعاة تقدير التنوع الثقافي. هذا التعلم لا يمكن أن يتحقق بدون تعليم ممنهج ومدروس ومتواصل من أجل السلام. معلمون من أجل السلام توفر منبراً للممارسات والأفكار الإبداعية لدعم دور المعلمين في التربية من أجل العدل والسلام، حتى تصبح المدارس الأماكن ومناطق يسودها الأمن والأمان والعدل والسلام. وسيتم تمويل الشبكة وهذا التجمع من قبل مؤسسة فاركي وإنتربيس. فكل الشكر للسيد سكوت ويبر وإنتربيس على دعمهم ورعايتهم لفكرة معلم من أجل السلام. أتحدث إليكم وأفكاري ومشاعري مشدودة إلى المسرح هذا المساء، وزملائي العشرة لهذا العام ينتظرون، وأنتظر معهم الإعلان عن الفائز للعام 2017. سيجلسون ورائي وأنا أشعر بخفقات قلوبهم. دعواتي تتوجه للفائز. من سيكون؟ أدعوه لينضم إلي في الكفاح والنضال من أجل المعلمين في جميع أنحاء العالم. للفائز وزملاء المعلمين، ثقوا بأنني سأكون دائماً بجانبكم، داعمة لكم، ومعاً وسوياً ويداً بيد لنخلص هذا العالم من الكراهية ونقوده نحو المحبة والسلام. ما أؤمن به نحتاج فقط إلى معلم حر، وكما قال شاعرنا محمود درويش رحمه الله: على هذه الأرض ما يستحق الحياة. فليحفظكم الله وليحفظ الله المعلمون، وشكرا لكم.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome onto the stage best-selling author and New York Times columnist, Mr. Thomas Friedman.
Good morning. Good morning. Great to be with you here this morning for this terrific education summit. I want to thank Sonny Varkey for inviting me and the Varkey Foundation. It's a great thing to be honoring teachers. What I'm going to talk about this morning basically is how I see the big forces in the world today. What are they changing? What does that mean for the world of work? And what does that therefore mean for the work of teachers and educators? That is really the subject of my newest book, Thank You for Being Late. And really what I want to do is go through the framework of that book and try to connect it to your project here this morning. So my book is called Thank You for Being Late, an optimist's guide to thriving in the age of acceleration. First question I always get from people is, where from comes the title? Thank you for being late. The title actually comes from meeting people for breakfast in Washington, D.C., where I live. And every once in a while, someone comes 10, 15 minutes late. And they'll say, oh, Mr. Friedman, I'm really sorry. It was the weather, the traffic, the subway, the dog ate my homework. And one day, 3 years ago, that happened. My friend Peter Corcel came late. And I spontaneously said to him, actually, Peter, thank you for being late. Because you were late, I've been eavesdropping on their conversation. Fascinating. I've been people watching the lobby. Fantastic. And best of all, I just connected two ideas I've been struggling with for a month. So thank you for being late. Well, people started to get into it. They'd say, well, you're welcome. Because they understood I was actually giving them permission to pause, to slow down, to reflect. In fact, my favorite quote in the first chapter of the book is from my teacher and friend Dov Seidman, who said, when you press the pause button on a computer, it stops. But when you press the pause button on a human being, it starts. That's when it starts to reflect, re-engineer, and reimagine. And boy, don't we need to do a lot of that today in this age where everything is accelerating. So this book actually started because I paused to engage with someone I wouldn't normally engage with. I live in Bethesda, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. And I take the subway to work about once a week to the New York Times Bureau in downtown Washington, D.C., near the White House. And that involves for me driving from my home in Bethesda to the Bethesda Hyatt Hotel. I park in the public parking garage beneath the hotel, and I take the Red Line subway into D.C. And I did that 3 years ago. Went into D.C., came back, got the subway back, got in my car, had my time-stamped ticket, came to the cashier's booth, handed it to the cashier. He looked at it and looked at me and said, "I know who you are." I said, "Great." He said, "I read your column." I said, "Great." He said, "I don't always agree." I thought, get me out of here. But I said, "Well, that's good. It means you always have to check." And then I drove off. A week later, I took my weekly subway ride in, DC, Red Line, office, Red Line, back, car, time-stamped ticket, drove to the cashier's booth, same guys there. This time he said, "Mr. Friedman, I have my own blog. Would you read my blog?" I thought, oh my God, the parking attendant is now my competitor. What just happened? So I said, "Well, write it down for me and I'll look it up." And he wrote on a piece of receipt paper, odanambi.com. I went home, I called it up on my computer. Turns out he's Ethiopian, writes about Ethiopian politics from the perspective of the Oromo people. Very pro-democracy kind of guy. I told my wife about it. I thought about him for a few days. And I eventually decided this was a sign from God that I should pause and engage this guy. But I didn't have his email, so all I could do was park in the parking garage every day, which I did. And after 4 days, I stopped under the gate. He was there at 7 in the morning. I blocked the gate from coming down. I got out of my car and said, "Ayile, now I know his name. I'd like your email," which he happily gave me. And that night, I sent him an email message. I said, "I have a proposition for you. I will teach you how to write a column if you will tell me your life story." And he basically said, "I see you're proposing a deal. I like this deal." So he asked if we could meet near his office at Pete's Coffee House in Bethesda, which we did 2 weeks later. And I came with a 6-page memo on how to write a column. And he told me his life story. It's a great story. Ethiopian immigrant, came to America 10 years ago, graduate of Haile Selassie University, economics grad, was blogging about Ethiopian politics on Ethiopian websites, but they were too slow, he told me. So he started his own blog, and now, Mr. Friedman, I feel empowered. His Google metrics say he's read in 30 different countries. This is my parking attendant. What a great story about how anyone today can participate in the global conversation. Well, I then explained to him how I go about writing a column. I explained to him that a news story is meant to inform, but a column, an opinion column, is meant to provoke. I can write a news story about this event, and Mr. Varkey will tell me whether it's better or worse. But a column is meant to provoke. I'm either in the heating business or the lighting business. I either do heating or lighting. I'm either stoking up an emotion in you or I'm illuminating something for you, and if I really do it well, I do both. But I explained to him that to produce heat and light required a chemical reaction. You had to combine 3 chemicals. First is, what is your value set? What is the value you're trying to push? Are you a communist, a capitalist, a neoliberal, a libertarian, a Keynesian, a Marxist? What is the value set you're trying to push? Second, how do you think the machine works today? So the machine is my shorthand for what are the biggest forces shaping more things in more places, in more ways, on more days. Because as a columnist, you always have to have in your head a working hypothesis of how the big gears and the pulleys of the world work. Because what you're trying to do is take your values and push the machine. And if you don't know how it works, you'll either push it in the wrong direction or you won't push it at all. And lastly, what have you learned about people and culture? Because there's no column without people. There are no people without culture. How does the machine affect different people and cultures? And how do they, in turn, affect the machine? Stir those together, let it rise, bake for 45 minutes, and if you do it right, you'll produce a column that produces either heat or light. Well, the more I explained this to my parking attendant, the more I started to say to myself, well, what's my value set? What's the set of values I'm pushing in the world? How do I think the machine works today? And what have I learned about people and culture over 40 years of being a journalist at the New York Times? And that's the book I decided to write. But what I want to talk about here this afternoon, this morning, is how the machine works today. Because you cannot be a teacher, an educator, unless you understand the world you're educating kids for. Now, I think what is shaping more things in more places, in more ways, on more days, is that we are in the middle of 3 exponential accelerations, all at the same time, with the 3 largest forces on the planet, which I call the market, Mother Nature, and Moore's Law. So the market for me is digital globalization, not your grandfather's globalization. That was tankers on ships or on planes. No, the way everything today is being digitized and globalized, whether it's through Twitter or Facebook or MOOCs or PayPal. If you put digital globalization on a graph, it looks like a big hockey stick. Mother Nature for me is climate change, biodiversity loss, and population growth. If you put that on a graph, it looks like a hockey stick. And Moore's Law, which says that the speed and power of microchips will double every 24 months, coined in 1965 by Gordon Moore, the co-founder of Intel. 52 years later, that law is still applying. Microchips, their speed and power is doubling. Now it's roughly 30 months. But when you double something and then double it and double it and double it over 52 years, you end up with an exponential acceleration in technology. We're in the middle of 3 nonlinear accelerations all at the same time with the 3 largest forces on the planet, the market, Mother Nature, and Moore's Law. And they're all interacting with each other. More Moore's Law, more technology drives more globalization. More globalization drives more climate change and more solutions. We're in the middle of 3 exponential accelerations, and they aren't just changing your world and your workplace, and therefore your school. They're fundamentally reshaping it. So let me talk a little bit more specifically about Moore's Law, which is what's driving so many changes in the workplace, and therefore so many new challenges for educators. My chapter on this subject is called What the Hell Happened in 2007? 2007. What's this guy talking about? What happened in 2007? Well, here's what happened in 2007. The year was kicked off at the Moscone Center in San Francisco when one Steve Jobs introduced the world's first iPhone, beginning a process by which we have now put into the palm of the hand of about half the people on the planet already a handheld computer connected to the internet with more compute power in it than the Apollo space mission. That's how 2007 began. In 2007, a company called Facebook, which had been confined to high schools and universities, opened its platform to anyone with a registered email address. It's actually late 2006, and in 2007, it went global. In 2007, a company called Twitter split off on its own platform and went global. In 2007, the most important software you've never heard of, called Hadoop, named after the founder's son's toy elephant, launched into the world. Hadoop is what enables 1 million computers to work together as one. It's called big data. That happened in 2007. Actually, the software breakthroughs in Hadoop were invented by Google, but as Doug Cutting, the founder of Hadoop, says, Google lives in the future and sends us letters back home. What Google did was leave a trail of breadcrumbs for the open source software community to reverse engineer its big data algorithms, and Hadoop was the public version. In 2007, the second most important software platform you've never heard of, called GitHub, opened its doors. It is now the world's biggest open source software repository. There is no big company in the world today that isn't using GitHub. In 2007, a company called Google bought a little-known TV company called YouTube. And in 2007, this same company called Google launched its own operating system into the wild called Android. In 2007, a guy up in Seattle named Jeff Bezos launched the world's first ebook reader called the Kindle. In 2007, IBM launched the world's first cognitive computer called Watson. In 2007, 3 design students in San Francisco were attending the design conference that year. They noticed all the hotel rooms were sold out. One of them had 3 spare air mattresses. They decided to rent them out to people wanting to attend the design conference, and it worked out so well. In 2007, they started a company called Airbnb. In 2007, that's a graph of the cost of sequencing a human genome. You'll notice in 2001, it was $100 million. In 2005, it fell to about $10 million. And then in 2007, it goes over a cliff and collapses to $1,200. 2007, solar energy took off, as did a process for extracting natural gas from tight shale called fracking. This is a graph of social networks. The white line is the cost of generating a megabit of data, and the blue line is the speed at which you can transmit a megabit of data. You'll notice the white line goes straight down in 2007. The 2 lines cross in 2008. That's close enough for government work. That's what Moore's Law looks like. That's what an exponential looks like. The engineers at Intel once were trying to explain to people the power of the Moore's Law exponential, because we rarely encounter an exponential in our lives. So what they did was they took a 1971 Volkswagen Beetle, and they said, what if this 1971 Volkswagen Beetle had improved at the same exponential rate as microchips had? They determined that that Beetle today, that VW Beetle, would go 300,000 miles an hour, it would get 2 million miles per gallon, and it would cost 4 cents. That's the power of the Moore's Law exponential. The cloud, this thing we call the cloud, was born in 2007. In 2007, the world, for the first time, crossed 1 billion users on the internet, actually late 2006. And in 2007, for the first time, we sent more text messages than voice messages on our cell phones. In 2007, Intel, for the first time, went off silicon to extend Moore's Law. And in 2007, Michael Dell, the founder of Dell Computers, who retired in 2005, decided he better come back to work in 2007. Turns out, friends, 2007, in time, may be understood as the single greatest technological inflection point since Gutenberg invented the printing press. And we all completely missed it. Why? Because of 2008. Right when the world's physical technologies just took off, like we were on a moving sidewalk in an airport, all of the social technologies, the political reform, the regulatory reform, the learning reform that had to go with that really froze because of 2008. And a lot of what you've been seeing in the last few years politically is because of that disjunction. Now, what happened in 2007? What basically happened is your computer that you're using, even your phone, basically has 5 key parts. It has that microchip, that Moore's Law CPU. It's got a storage chip, it's got networking, it's got software, and it's got a sensor. Basically, all 5 were in a Moore's Law, and in 2007, they all melded into this thing we call the cloud. The cloud. But I never use the term the cloud in my book because it sounds so soft, so fluffy, so cuddly, so benign. It sounds like a Joni Mitchell song. I've looked at clouds from both sides. This ain't no cloud, folks. This is what I call in my book a supernova. The supernova is the largest force in nature. It's the explosion of a star. And this thing we call the cloud, this supernova, became a giant new energy source. It created an incredible release of energy into the hands of human beings and machines that has changed overnight 4 kinds of power. Changed the power of one. Oh my God, what one person can do now to make things or break things is unlike anything we've seen before. I have a president who can sit in his pajamas and tweet to hundreds of millions of people around the world directly without an editor, without a libel lawyer, and without a filter, okay? Which you may have noticed. But here's what's new. The head of ISIS can do the same thing from Raqqa province. That's the new power of one. Power of machines have changed. Machines now have all 5 senses. We've never lived in a world where machines had all 5 senses. And we crossed that line on February 14th, 2011, on all places on a game show. There were 3 contestants on this American game show. The first and second were the all-time Jeopardy champions. The 2 all-time Jeopardy champions. And the third contestant simply went by his last name, Watson. He was an IBM computer. Mr. Watson passed on the first question on the show. The second question was, it's worn on the foot of a horse and used by a dealer in a casino. And in under 2.5 seconds, Mr. Watson, the computer, buzzed in before the 2 human beings and said in perfect Jeopardy language, "What is a shoe?" And for the first time, a cognitive computer figured out a pun on Jeopardy faster than 2 human beings. And the world kind of hasn't been the same since. It's changed the power of many. We now, as a collective, are a force of and on nature, so much so that the new geological era is being named for us, the Anthropocene. And lastly, and most importantly to every teacher in this room, it changed the power of flows. Ideas now flow and change at a rate we've never seen before. I'm 63. When I was growing up, and when a lot of you were growing up, we lived in a world of stocks. Stocks. You wanted to stock up on as many resources as you could. You wanted to stock up on as many people as you could. And education was all about stocking up information and knowledge into the heads of your students. Well, as management consultant John Hagel likes to say, we've moved in the age of acceleration from a world of stocks to a world of flows. Now you want to be in touch with the flow. You want more of your school, your students to be in touch with the flow. That's where ideas and energy will come from. Because in an age of rapid change and interdependence, the idea that you can just stock up on 4 years of college education and then spend it over 30 years of your career, that is over. You have to be in the constant flow. And that's why you have to be a lifelong learner, and we'll talk about that a little more in a second. But all of this shift from stocks to flows happened around 2007. In the Middle Ages, where did you want to build your town? You wanted to build it on a river. Why? Because the river brought you energy, brought you food, brought you power, brought you ideas. You wanted to build your town on the Amazon. Where do you want to build your town today and your school? You want to build it on Amazon.com. You want to build it on the flows coming out of the supernova. Now, these changes in power have fundamentally reshaped our world. And what the second half of my book is about is how they reshape politics, geopolitics, the workplace, ethics, and community. But what I want to talk about with you today is how they are reshaping how companies educate their workers, how parents and teachers need to educate our kids, and how we as communities need to educate ethics. All three are the new education challenges in the age of acceleration. Let's first of all talk about how companies have to change how they educate employees, companies and communities. So my chapter on this subject is called How We Turn AI into IA. How we turn artificial intelligence into intelligent assistance, ANCE, intelligent assistance, ANTS, and intelligent algorithms, so more people can learn faster. Why do we need to do that? It's summed up in this graph. That's a graph that was drawn for me by Astro Teller, the founder who runs Google X, actually, Google's research arm. So this graph is basically where we are today. This is the rate of change, this is time. So the blue line is the average rate at which human beings, societies, and your schools change over time. That blue line has a slightly positive slope, but it's very gradual. The white line is Moore's law. It's technology. Now, if you lived over here in the 11th century or the 12th century, the line was very flat. Your bow and arrow did not get better between the 11th century and the 12th century. We could go a whole century and nothing much improved. But then we got Galileo and Copernicus, and then Steve Jobs and Moore's Law, and Intel line starts to go north. And then Astro drew that diamond up there. I said, what's that? He said, that's where we are. The speed of change now in technology is faster than the average human being in society can adapt. Then he took out another magic marker, and he drew that dotted line there. I said, what's that? He said, that's learning faster and governing smarter. That's the challenge we face today. How do we use AI to create IA? How do we use artificial intelligence to create intelligent assistants, intelligent assistants, and intelligent algorithms so more people can live at a higher rate of change? That is the central educational challenge every company and community has today. So I will give you a few examples of how we turn AI into IA. The first is the Human Resources Department at AT&T, very big American company, AT&T. What do? 360,000 employees, live in an incredibly competitive market, telecom, right next to the supernova. They feel the heat every day. They compete every morning with Verizon and Sprint and T-Mobile and Deutsche Telekom and British Technology. British Telecom. So here's how they work. AT&T starts its year with its CEO, Randall Stevenson, gives a radically transparent speech about where the company is going, how they see their market, and what skills you need to be an employee at AT&T that year. Then they put every one of their employees on their own in-house LinkedIn system. So let's say I'm an employee at AT&T, I'm there, they see Tom Friedman. Turns out there are 10 skills you need to be an employee that year at AT&T, and I have 7 of them, but I'm missing 3. Then they partnered with Sebastian Thrun from Udacity, and he created nano degrees for all 10. Then they came to me and said, here's the deal, Mr. Friedman. We will give you up to $8,500 a year to take the 3 nano degrees for the skills you're missing. There's just one condition. You have to take these courses on your own time. Now, if I say, you know what, I've climbed up one too many telephone poles, I'm just really not up for this anymore, AT&T has a wonderful severance package for me now. But I will not be an employee of AT&T much longer. Their new social contract with their employees is very simple. If I take those courses, they will offer me the new jobs first. But if I don't, I'm going to be gone soon. Their social contract is you can be a lifelong employee at AT&T, but only if you are a lifelong learner. If you are not ready to be a lifelong learner, you can no longer be a lifelong employee at AT&T. If you think we're in the days of stocks, where you could just have your 4-year degree and then spend it over the 30 years of your career here, you are wrong. You have to be a lifelong learner. We will provide the courses. We will even provide the tuition, but you will have to take the courses on your own time. That is the new social contract for the age of acceleration, and trust me, it's coming to a neighborhood near you. That's my example of intelligent assistance. Intelligent assistant, ANTS, I use the example of Qualcomm, big telecom company. You haven't heard much about them, but they actually made the inside of your phone, the chips and the software. Now, Qualcomm has a 64-building campus in San Diego. And 2 years ago, they took all their buildings, 6 buildings, and they put sensors on everything, every door, every window, every computer, every faucet, every drain, every heating system, every air conditioner. And they beam all that data up to the supernova, and then they now beam it down onto the iPad of their janitors. They've made their janitors into maintenance technologists. If I leave my computer on, if a light bulb blows over my head, they know it before I do, and they can either swipe down and find out how to repair it, who to call, or whatever. Their janitors have become maintenance technologists, and they now give tours to foreign visitors because they have an intelligent assistant enabling them to live above the line at a higher pace of change. Imagine what that does to the dignity of a janitor. Intelligent algorithm, I have a couple of examples. One is the partnership between the College Board and Khan Academy, the online learning platform. So, as the Americans in the audience know, in 11th grade, we have to take something called the PSAT exam to prepare for the SAT exam to determine what college we can get into, our math and verbal skills. What many parents in America do, unfortunately, is they go out in 11th grade and hire a tutor for $200 an hour to tutor their kids to improve their PSAT and SAT scores in math and verbal. It's a completely rigged game. A completely rigged game, because if you come from a family that can't afford it or doesn't even know you could do this, you're at a real disadvantage. 3 years ago, the College Board partnered with Khan Academy to create an intelligent algorithm for free PSAT and SAT prep. Now the way it works is I take the SAT in 11th grade, the PSAT in 11th grade, I'm sorry, and I get the results back and they say, Mr. Friedman, you did really well in math, but you have a problem with fractions and right angles. You have a problem with fractions and right angles. It then takes me directly to a practice site just for fractions and right angles. Just my specific weakness. Doesn't worry about my strengths. If I do well there, it takes me into another site just for AP math. They tell me you could actually be in AP math. I came from a family didn't even know there was AP math. No, they said I could be in AP math. I do well there, it takes me to another site with 180 college scholarships. If I do well there, it takes me to another site where young boys and girls through the Boys and Girls Clubs of America have volunteered to shepherd other young people through this intelligent algorithm. Last year, 3 million American kids took advantage of that intelligent algorithm to get free PSAT and SAT prep. Lastly, opportunity at work. This is an intelligent algorithm to deal with the unemployment question. We have 32 million Americans who started college but never finished. Some went 1 year, some went 2 years, some went 2.5, some went 3.5 years but had to drop out. They go to apply for a job. The employer says, "Where's your BA?" Got no BA. You got no job. We're now seeing the emergence of intelligent algorithms like Opportunity at Work that can actually measure what you learned in 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years, 2.5 years. They then badge it and partner with companies to slot you directly in. I profile in my book a young woman, African-American woman named LaShawna Lewis. She dropped out of Michigan Tech computer science program after 3.5 years. Couldn't get a job without a BA. Ended up driving the school bus, couldn't make this up, to and from a computer school, and working on the help desk at a law firm, helping knucklehead lawyers figure out how to overcome their lost passwords. She got onto an Opportunity at Work program. They badged her knowledge, plugged her in at MasterCard. Today she is a systems engineer at MasterCard, and as she says in my book, the last line of her interview, "And I still don't have my BA." That is an intelligent algorithm. So there's actually massive amounts of innovation going on in the workplace for how we accelerate people's learning in the age of acceleration, taking artificial intelligence and creating intelligent algorithms. That's what's going on in the workplace, in the education to work platform. What's going on in the family? What needs to go on in the family? You know, the most often question I get is, Mr. Friedman, you have 2 girls. What do you tell your own girls how to thrive in the age of acceleration? Well, they're actually 31 now and 28, and they're tired of hearing it, but you're fresh meat. So I'm going to share it with you. Here's what I tell my own girls. This is where I think has to go on in the family. When I was growing up, I got to find a job. When you grow up, you will have to invent a job. That's the big difference between me and my girls. When I grew up, people asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I told them, when you grow up, the question is how you want to be. How you want to be. How you want to relate to this world of flows, not stocks. And here's what I urge them how they should be. First, I tell them, always think like a new immigrant. How does the new immigrant think? New immigrant thinks, I just showed up here in Washington, D.C., and there's no legacy spot waiting for me at Georgetown. I better figure out what the opportunities are here and pursue them with more energy and vigor than anybody else. An Armenian friend of mine says, new immigrants are paranoid optimists. They're optimists because they left somewhere bad to come to somewhere they think will be better, but they are always paranoid. It can be taken away from them in a second. We are all new immigrants to the age of acceleration. Second, I tell them, think like an artisan. Who is the artisan? That was the person before mass manufacturing, before assembly lines. who made every item individually. The artisan made every shoe, every belt, every table, every chair, every fork, spoon, glass, chandelier, saddle, and stirrup. The artisan made individually. And what did the best artisans do? They brought so much unique personal value add to what they did, so much extra, they carved their initials into their work at the end of the day. Do your job every day as if you bring so much heart, so much extra, so much unique human value add that you want to carve your initials into it at the end of the day. That will be a job that cannot be automated, outsourced, or digitized. Always think like an artisan. Third, always think like a starter-upper in Silicon Valley. I got this idea from Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn. Reid likes to say in Silicon Valley, there's only one four-letter word. It's actually not four letters, but it does start with an F. And that word is finished. Finished. If you ever think of yourself as finished, you are really finished. Reid's motto is always think that you're in beta. Beta is the stage of the development of a software where it's about 85% done. They throw it over the wall, they let the community test it, find the holes, find the glitches, they throw it back, they work on it some more, they throw it over the wall again. Always be in beta. Always be in the state of learning, relearning, re-engineering, retooling, lifelong learning. Never think of yourself as finished, because if you do, I promise you, you are really finished in the age of acceleration. Fourth, always remember this equation. PQ plus CQ is always greater than IQ. Oh, in the age of flows, you give me a young person with a high passion quotient, a high persistence quotient, and a high curiosity quotient, I'll take them over the kid with the high intelligence quotient 7 days a week. PQ plus CQ will always trump IQ in the age of flows. And lastly, always think like a waitress at Perkins Pancake House in Minneapolis, my hometown and favorite restaurant. When I was working on my last book, I had breakfast at Perkins Pancake House on a Sunday morning with my best friend Ken. I ordered 3 buttermilk pancakes and scrambled eggs. And Ken ordered 3 buttermilk pancakes and fruit. And after 15 minutes, the waitress came back, she put down her 2 plates, and all she said to Ken was, "I gave you extra fruit." I gave that waitress a 50% tip. Why did I give her a 50% tip? Because that waitress didn't control much, but she controlled the fruit spoon. And she was back there in the kitchen, and she probably said to herself, "I'm going to give this guy a little extra fruit, see what happens." Turns out he was eating with me, and I recognized what she was acting entrepreneurially. She was acting like an entrepreneur, and she got a 50% tip. Whatever you do, whether you're a teacher, a principal, a student, working in an office or an assembly line, always think entrepreneurially in the age of acceleration, whatever you do. So if you take nothing away from this, folks, take this. Always think like a new immigrant and stay hungry in the age of acceleration. Always think like an artisan and take pride. Bring unique value to what you do. Always think like a starter-upper in Silicon Valley and stay in the mode of beta, learning and relearning. Remember that PQ plus CQ will always trump IQ, and always, always think like a waitress at Perkins Pancake House and be relentlessly entrepreneurial, because we all really do live in a time where average is officially over. Now, we've talked about how companies need to educate employees. We've talked about how parents need to think about the how of their kids. Let me conclude with an increasingly important issue: how we as a society have to rethink ethics and how we teach ethics in the age of acceleration. So my chapter on this subject is called, Is God in Cyberspace? Is God in cyberspace? Best question I ever got on book tour. 1999, I'm selling a book called Lexus and the Olive Tree. I'm in Portland, Oregon. A guy stands up at question time in the balcony, says, "Mr. Friedman, I have a question. Is God in cyberspace?" I said, idea. Felt kind of stupid. Got home, I called my spiritual teacher. He's a rabbi I got to know in Jerusalem when I was a New York Times correspondent there. He lives in Amsterdam now, married to a Dutch priest. Great scholar. I called him up. I said, Zvi, I got a question I've never had before. Is God in cyberspace? What should I have said? And he said, well, Tom, in our faith tradition, we have two concepts of the Almighty. One is that he's almighty. He smites evil and rewards good. And if that's your view of God, I have to tell you, he's not in cyberspace because it's full of pornography, gambling, cheating, lying, prevarication, and now we know fake news, okay? So, but he said, fortunately, we have a post-biblical view of God, and that says God manifests himself by how we behave. So if we want God to be in cyberspace, we have to bring him there by how we behave there. Only we can bring God to cyberspace. Well, I put that into the paperback edition of Lexus and the Olive Tree, and I completely forgot about it 20 years ago, and none of you ever saw it. I started writing this new book, and I found myself retelling that story. Is God in cyberspace? And I finally asked myself, why are you retelling that story? And it immediately became obvious for two reasons. And one really happened last year. A majority of our lives have moved to cyberspace. That's now where we find a date, find a spouse, get our education, buy our shoes, get our news, communicate with family and friends. Our lives have moved a majority to cyberspace. But what does that mean? It means our lives have moved into a realm where we're all connected, but no one's in charge. That's the definition of cyberspace. We're all connected, but no one's in charge. There are no stoplights there. There's no courts, no police. If you're an American, there's no 1-800, please stop Putin from hacking my election. Our lives have moved to a realm where we're all connected, but no one's in charge. What does that mean? It means our lives have moved to a realm that is fundamentally God-free. Wow. At the same time, because of my accelerations, because of the incredible power of one now, we're standing at a moral intersection we have never stood at before as a species. In 1945, we entered a world where one country could kill all of us post-Hiroshima. That was America. I think we're entering a world in the age of acceleration where one person can kill all of us, and where all of us could also fix everything. We've never been here before, where one of us could kill all of us, and all of us, if we put our minds to it with these new technologies, we could actually feed, house, clothe, and educate every person on the planet. We have never been to this intersection before where one of us can kill all of us and all of us could fix everything. What does that mean? It means we have never been more godlike as a species. And what does that mean? It means we all better be in the embrace of the golden rule. Do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. Because we now live in a world where you can do unto others farther, faster, deeper, cheaper than ever before, and others can do unto you farther, faster, deeper, cheaper than ever before. Putin did unto us in our election. Everybody has to embrace the golden rule. Oh, I know what you're thinking. I actually gave this talk as the graduation address at Olin College of Engineering last May. And I told the parents there, I know what you're thinking. You sent your kids to get an engineering degree. You paid $200,000. And now they brought in a graduation speaker who's selling the golden rule. What could be more naive? And I'm here to tell you, friends, as I told them, naivete is the new realism. Because I'll tell you what's really naive. Thinking we're going to be okay when our lives have moved to a realm that is fundamentally God-free, value-free, and we have become more God-like. If people aren't grounded in the golden rule, whatever your faith has, every faith has a version of it. Values matter more than ever now. Don't teach coding to your kids. Teach it if you want. But before you teach them coding, teach them digital civics. How to talk to one another on the internet. How to understand fact from fiction on the internet. The internet and cyberspace is an open sewer of untreated, unfiltered information. And if we don't build the values filters, so our young people, because you can't be there all the time, can interact in this environment of cyberspace with real values to understand fact from fiction and how to talk to one another, oh, we have a real problem. Now, where do values come from? Where does the golden rule come from? I think it comes from strong families and healthy communities. And the rest of my book is about that, but I won't bother you with it now. I'll just conclude with my book has a theme song. I actually thought if I could buy it, and when you open the book, it would play this song like a Hallmark card plays Happy Birthday, because I think it's the song of our day. The song is by Brandi Carlile. She's a wonderful country folk singer, and the song is called The I, E-Y-E. And the main refrain is, I wrapped your love around me like a chain, but I never was afraid that it would die. You can dance in a hurricane, but only if you're standing in the eye. You see, I think my three accelerations in the market, Mother Nature, and Moore's Law, they are a hurricane. In my country, we have a president who's selling a wall against the hurricane. And we got a lot of other leaders around the world who are selling walls against the hurricane. My book is arguing for an eye that moves with the storm, draws energy from it, but creates a platform of dynamic stability within it, the healthy community and strong family, where people can feel connected, protected, and respected. I think politics in the age of accelerations, the big fight is going to be between the wall people and the I people. And my book is a manifesto for the I people. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Refugee Olympic team!
You had to flee from your homes because of violence, hunger, or just because you were different. Now, with your great talent and human spirit, you are making a great contribution to society.
The Olympics, the moment nations and cultures become united as one. In 2016, a group of athletes became the Refugee Olympic team. Against all odds, and forged out of human crises, these individuals ascended to the highest levels of athleticism and became a symbol to the world of what we can achieve if we get behind the refugees. This is the Refugee Olympic team. Remi Arnis, 100-meter butterfly. Popole Misenya, judo. James Nahyan, 400 meters. Jonas Kinde, marathon. Yolande Bukasa Mabika, judo. Yesh Purbil, 800 meters. Rose Nathika, 800 meters. Angelina Nadai, 1,500 meters. Paulo Amatun Lokoro, 1,500 meters. These athletes never stopped. They have become images of inspiration, emblems of how to face adversity, showing the world that not only can refugees survive, but they can advance.
You are sending a message of hope to all the many millions of refugees around the globe.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome onto the stage the first ever Refugee Olympic team that took part in the 2016 Summer Games in Rio de Janeiro.
Thank you so much. We were lucky to be part of the first ever Refugee Olympic team. And yet, millions of refugees were denied for the basic need. Education is a human right. Half of the children are denied to have education, primary and secondary. Quarter of the adults, they were denied to have access to education. Everyone has a room for education as a young children, as an adult. This is a gap whereby young refugees, they need to get access to education. I'm asking everyone in this room to think about the life of young, talented refugee children who are not in school, who have a lack of education, to think, what can we change in the world? Because these people, they are young, talented people who can have access to education. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation for the first ever Refugee Olympic team.
That's incredible. Friends, we come to the closing plenary, the concluding remarks on the plenary stage today. We had yesterday some incredible speakers. Normally a day two of a conference peters off somewhat, but this morning, I think you'll agree, we had a bombastic, blockbuster lineup. Tom Friedman, Bear Grylls, the Olympic refugee team, and His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan. Please join me in thanking them for making the effort to be here today. The conference has delivered a number of reports, number of publications. I mentioned earlier that they're available in the app on our website. Please download them, please read them, please disseminate them. I'm also delighted that our friend and my mentor, Professor Fernando Remes of Harvard, is making his book, Empowering Global Citizens, available on Kindle for free for the duration of this conference. Please download it, use it. It's a fantastic read. Thank you, Fernando, for your friendship. We also, straight after this plenary, we have sessions starting as we did yesterday. I just want to profile some of the speakers so that you're aware of what's going on. We have, obviously, Sadhguru with us straight after this session in this hall. Those of you that are staying, can you please come to the front? We also have our friend from Singapore, Un Sen Teng. When you think about teacher education, you think about the PISA results, you think about Singapore being at the top, this man has been critical to that, and you're welcome to listen to him in the Assateer tent. We have an adventurer, an Egyptian adventurer, explorer, mountain climber, Omar Samra. We have a neuroscientist that has flown all the way from the US just now called Olivier Oulier, our friend Olivier Oulier. We also have, and I'm delighted to say, we also have Maestro Andrea Bocelli here today with us. Maybe he and I will tag team later on today in an interview as opposed to a song, just to give you reassurance. You know, we have a packed day. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Assateer tent and on all the sessions with engaging with all our speakers in our sessions like you did yesterday. Thank you all very much. The last thing I want to say is that the Global Teacher Prize ceremony is tonight. You will need your badge. Please make sure you come with it. The doors will open at 5:30 and we expect to start at 6. Please wear your sparkling suits and dresses. Thank you so much.